Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the world of philosophy. So I know my subject to you is ethics, and of course, what are the necessary things that we need to know is that the origin of ethics. So I started asking everybody, and also giving you an assignment about where did ethics actually came from. So for you to know, ethics actually came from philosophy. So it is a branch of philosophy. And yes, philosophy has four major branches, and that was last time. And then it was later then that based on the research and based on the proposals of different authors. So these actually include aesthetics also as part of philosophy later then. So I will be presenting to you class my presentation about uh, today's discussion. So we are going to discuss with the introduction of ethics. I'm sorry, philosophy. So I hope everybody can visibly see my presentation. So yes, philosophy is actually coincide coming from the two Greek word which actually means philia and sophia. So the two are actually combined together until yes, it would actually produce another meaning which is love of wisdom. So there you can see on my presentation, there's philia which means love and sophia which means wisdom. So tinuod, no? And that's how important it is to actually know about what philosophy is all about. Okay. So, of course, when we're going to say love, it is something that expresses the strong desire towards a particular object. Diba? When we are going to say, I love my mother, I love my father, I love my family, and I love my boyfriend. So, meaning to say, it is not just something as the preconception no, of kaning gitawag nato og love nga kana lang shallow lang, but this has to be something that is come beneath sa atuang kasing-kasing and as well as sa atuang mind. Of course, wisdom is the correct application of knowledge. We can never say that a particular thing is coming from the word wisdom if you're not going to examine all of your thoughts. It is a product of the thoughts of a person. So wisdom, when combined together, as I mentioned a while ago, of course, that could actually produce this what we call the meaning of philosophy. So, believe me or not, I think philosophy is the birth of philosophy actually exists during the time that the human person also was created. So during the time that we exist, of course, I believe that philosophy also exists because everything when we are going to discuss about everything like uh, based on my second presentation, as you can see, both things that can be seen by the naked eye and those that are coming from our thoughts or coming from our mind are also product of philosophy. I mean, all of those things that both can be seen and can be imagined, that is the product of philosophy. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next presentation that I have. So philosophy is, of course, this is a branch of science that studies beings in their ultimate causes, reasons, and principles through the aid of human person alone. So there, as you can see on my presentation, you can see the pictures of rocks, you can see the pictures of a forest, and even the people that actually represents from different races in the globe, and as well as a car. Well, those are product of uh, those are the product of philosophy, which belongs to the group of the material. And what about when we speak about immaterial? So of course, it is part of ethics, no, which is actually pertaining to those notions of God, the soul, and spirit, and even the imaginations that we have. Okay? So meaning both tangible and intangible. Ato ang ma-experience uh through the aid of phantasm, no? kani bang gitawag nato pantasam, kani ato ang panlasa, no? Kani atong the way we feel, the way we actually hear and taste. So those are becomes the product of kaning sa ato ang mga senses. So they become phantasm. And those immaterial, sir, can we not actually experience the presence of spirit? Uh, Actually, that is not when we are going to put basis on the belief of science in the practice, not the belief, but in the practice of science. Of course, all of those things are just a product of imagination. But it's all up to the to every individual if you're going to believe it or not. And that what is the most reliable is that no one can actually argue with you whether you believe it or not. Okay, so that's part of your right also as an individual. Okay, let me proceed with one of the famous philosopher. But before that one, of course, for you to be enlightened about what philosophy is all about and what are the basic questions that may actually anchor to your mind. So I will be presenting to you 5 basic questions that are actually part of the philosophy. So we might be asking about what is the origin of the world of everything that exists. Like for example, why do I exist as a person? And yes, there are also some what is this? Some questions coming that are based on science, like what is the beginning of the earth? No? Asa siya nagsugod. So, kung sa mga elements nga nasa earth, then all of those questions are actually product of philosophy also. No? So next we have, why do these things exist rather than not exist at all? So like somewhat like we are going to ask about nganong natawo pa man ko? Why not dili ako? Why not wala ko natawo? And sometimes no, like for example, if we can actually encounter a very tragic shall we say a very serious problem, I'm sorry, a very serious problem, sometimes we tend to actually ask about like this, no, nga may pag nganong ako pa man sa kadaghan tao, so something like that, no. And then is there God? So of course, basically, and I know all of you here also believe that there's the presence of God. So sometimes, yes, that could be the product of the questions that may anchor about philosophy. So if so, how can we justify the goodness of God in the face of evil? So like sometimes we can actually ask if there is the existence of that evil, and why is that so that God actually allowed those evil to exist? And next we have, what is the meaning and purpose of life? I know everybody are actually I know you actually experience asking this one to yourself. What is actually the purpose of life? And that is part of philosophy also. Why do we have to suffer? Sometimes no, usahay no, kung wagan ta sa tong uyab, mingon ta nga ngano ako pa man oy, no? So that's it's part of that the process, no? That's the part of what we call philosophy. If one is suffering from an unbearable pain, such as cancer, is it morally right to resort to euthanasia or assisted suicide? So those are just the basic questions that are actually part of philosophy. So akong usbon, para dili ta malibog ug maayo, philosophy. Think of this, no? Na the moment that the person actually exists, dili lang the person, but the moment, like if we are going to put basis on the Bible, the moment that uh, what is this, Adam and Eve exist in the world, there's already the birth of philosophy. Okay, so one of the famous philosopher actually tried to ask these questions, no, and say something about philosophy, about what philosophy has to give to every individual. Si Carl Jaspers ningon siya, questions are more important than answers because answers themselves will in turn become questions. And yes, true to that, it actually happens in our life, in our daily life. Sometimes, like for example, miingon tano, there is already a solution on how to actually cure COVID virus, no? But yet, even though there are lots of scientists who are actually proposing their right now, not proposing, but yes, to the extent that they produce medication about COVID, but still, mo ginano na do na answer na, right now wala gyapon siya nawala because there is the mutation that also happens to that particular virus. So it was already answered, but yet nana po another question arrived, and that's everything becomes matawag na to siya class of never ending. No, it is a non-terminating, like a non, what is this, it does not actually ended, no, ang ato ang pagpangutana sa matag kinabuhi. But yes, we have to accept the fact that as we actually exist, of course, that is part of our mission to actually witness, and at the same time, we should never stop seeking answers. Now, mabdo na giingon, no, I forgot with a particular verse in the Bible, but it actually suggests to every individual that seek and you shall find, knock and you shall be open. So meaning to say, of course, we have to find answers, because that is one way that we can actually appreciate life. Okay, so let me proceed with number 4. We have the I mentioned a while ago about the 4 major branches of the philosophy, and this is it. No, right now I will be introducing to you the first major branch of philosophy, which is the metaphysics. So the metaphysics, by the way, it is being called as a foundation of philosophy. That is according to Aristotle, one of the famous philosophers during the Greek period. Okay, so metaphysics is the same as philosophy. It is actually coincide with uh, 2 Greek words, which means meta and physica. Okay, what is meta? Meta means beyond, or I'm sorry, after. Physica means physical or nature. So when the two are actually combined together, it could actually produce another meaning, which means beyond physical. Okay, so this actually concerns about the study of things beyond the physical concept, or things that cannot be experienced. So kung sa mga said, naglibog lang mi, it is a concept of a thing, but it cannot be experienced. So just like immaterial. So ang yan mean is about immaterial, because the material thing which is tangible, ato itong makita, at the same time we can actually experience it. Init siya, bugnaw siya, lami siya. So that is not part of metaphysics. What is the concern of metaphysics are those things that cannot be experienced. Okay, so let's go deeper about what metaphysics is all about. So metaphysics is something, no, I'm sorry, but I moved to another I'm sorry, I moved to another slide. By the way, metaphysics, as I mentioned a while ago, those things that cannot be experienced. So one of the examples is the belief about the existence of God, the belief about the existence of a spirit, the product of your imagination. Diba? Like for example, you actually have that kind of fund that you wanted to go abroad, but because of like for example, because of the kind of status that you have, no, in life, nga dili ka dato, you cannot actually afford to go to abroad. So sometimes because of that, you tend to imagine, no, how does it feel to actually experience nga magawas ka, no, nga na snow, o mag-skiing ba ka, or so on and so forth, together with your special someone. So that's part of metaphysics, especially those things like, for example, what about dreams, sir? Of course, that's also part of metaphysics that only exists in our mind. No, that it cannot be experienced. No, it cannot be experienced by someone else. You can never tell that one to someone else, and you cannot let them know about unsa day feeling ko panitan hikapo ng weight lady, or unsa, and so on and so forth. But one thing is for sure, of course, those are part of the existence nga nagpasabot, no, nga kita sa atong pag-exist. Of course, it's not only about those things that can be explained. Also, there are things in this world that can hardly be explained. And what is very certain about that one is kanino, the imagination itself has no limit, just like the knowledge. Okay, so let me proceed with the next slide. We have epistemology, or yes, it actually coined with the 2 Greek word, which means episteme and logos, which means study. Okay, so it actually study of the nature and scope of knowledge and justified belief. So there you can see on the diagram na sa tunga-tunga ang knowledge ang isa ka kilid pikas at the left side, you can actually see the truth and the belief on the other side. So to understand what episteme is all about, like for example, these are the basic questions. What is knowledge? Unsa ning knowledge, since episteme comes from the word knowledge. What is knowledge? So everybody can actually give their own definition about what knowledge is all about, no? What do we know? So can you, are you that kind of a machine or something that can actually measure specifically asa kutob ang imong nakatunan or asa kutob ang imong nahibalan? So of course, still that is in the process of the developmental stage of a person. No? Kaya as we grow older, of course, we can learn every day. Every day can be a good opportunity for us to become a better person. So how is knowledge can be acquired? So for the others, you have to read books. For the others, you have to experience, and so on and so forth. And then what are the structures and limits of knowledge? So is there a limit of knowledge? So of course, no one is certain also. No, what makes justified beliefs justified? Sometimes there are beliefs that are hardly we can actually find it so hard to actually explain, to express that one to other people. But there are also people who are very artistic in the aspect of kaning pag discourse, no, that you can somehow bisag ang tao, no, maglisod ka og bisag ka ng tao, no, lisod ka mo to, mapatuon nimo siya just because of on how you actually represent about that one. And that is an example of epistemology. Now let's proceed with the third one. We have the logic. Of course, this is something very famous to everybody. The logic, or the word logos, science of correct thinking. Now, logic actually study of the principles and criteria of a valid argument. And yes, logic, no, why is that so that it is actually called a valid argument? Why is that so that it is actually adopting principles and criteria? So of course, mingutak principles class, this is something very subjective because everybody has its own belief and everybody has its own definition, no? Kung about sa mga butang-butang and interpretation. And that's, yes, I can see that makes every individual unique from each other. Now, a criteria, of course, it actually applies science because there are specific measures that are actually being applied to have an argument. Of course, pareha ba ng mga abogado class, it has to be what is this? Ang inyong idea, no, ang inyong principles, the criteria that you have presented, kaning inyong evidence nga inyong i-present, set to it that this is something very convincing, or else it can be void. So inana ang logic, the power of logic. Like number 2, distinguish sound or good reasoning from unsound or bad reasoning. So that's also part of it. That when we are, of course, we do really have that power to actually argue. We do really have that power to actually do an interpolation if we in ourselves, well, we are actually well versed with information. Now the basic questions in logic is, what is correct thinking? So yes, of course, no, we cannot actually measure, no, unsa ni siya, not unless of course di siya mo undergo systematic way. So the correct reasoning, unsa man nato pagpaagi. And of course, there are lots of people also who are good in that. What distinguishes a good argument from a bad one? So that's also part of the questions that is anchored in logic. How can we detect fallacy in an argument? So no, kanang mga sayop, mga sipyat, no? Number 4, what are the criteria in determining the validity of an argument? So what makes it valid? Now, of course, if there's a presentation, if it actually undergoes a very formal and at the same time systematic presentation of evidences and so on and so forth, yes, you can actually have a very good argument. What are types of logic? So nasa din yung mga types of ang logic, no? But I am not going to dig far about logic because we are going to focus more. What I am trying to discuss right now is the basic lang about the asa din nagikan ng ethics o kinsa iya mga kauban. Okay? So let's proceed with, of course, the most awaited moment, the subject that we have, which is ethics. So of course, ethics is actually coming from the Greek word ethos, which means custom or habit. So also it is actually defined as morality of actions. So just because it is actually defined as a morality of actions, of course, it actually ought know how human persons ought to act and the search for a definition of a right conduct and a good life. So yes, sometimes not interchangeably we are going to use ethics and morality on the same ground, but they are not the same on its level, no? Mulag mahog sila, no? Ang ethics is far beyond morality, but they have similarities because it actually concentrates, it actually focus on the right and the wrong act. Now, I am going to discuss that one later as we proceed with the basic questions in ethics. So what is a right conduct as that which causes the realization for the greatest good? So unsa din ang right conduct, no? How do we determine a right conduct? So in other words, what makes a right conduct right? And number 3, what is good life and can we attain it? And number 4, what is the difference between human act and actions that are based on instinct? So later on, we can actually discuss that one further with our next topic. Okay? Okay, nadyo na sila yung mga kalahian. Now, we have to differentiate about, let us discuss the difference between ethics and morality. Now, ethics and morals, as I mentioned a while ago, they relate to right and wrong conduct. No? So while they are sometimes used interchangeably, they are different because ethics refer to rules provided by an external source. So the codes of conduct in a workplace or principles in religions. So di ana to masuta no nga nagiday sila kalahian, that is ethics. So ang pangutana, ang kaning ethics ug morality since pareha ra man siya no gani gamiton na siya interchangeably, but as I mentioned a while ago, they have different in some point, no, na sila kalahian. So dire inyo nakita the codes of conduct in the workplace. So sometimes it can be used no sa tuang different na mga organizations because we have to actually look upon what is the nature of the kind of business that you have or the kind of organizations that you have, wherein unsa man nga klase nga trabaho and what particular group of people are actually required for that particular circle. So they also have to look upon what is the very effective way on imposing good conducts sa usa ka organization, as well as kaning gitawag nito kwas no like by profession. So we have a code of conduct which is actually or originally coming from the ethics, no, kaning mga parehanang mga teacher. We also have mga ethical conducts that are actually required by profession. Like doctors, they also have ethical standards and conduct of the code of conducts, as well as the rest of the other professions. Now, the principles in religions, yes, as far as I know, we have 7 general religions in the world, no, na Islam, na Taoism, Hinduism, we have Roman Catholic, and so on, so the others. Now, of course, we have that we're not unified, no? Natay mga differences on the same on different aspects in terms of kaning pagview about what is a good and a right, no? Pero one thing is for sure, of course, they are unique from each other and no one is certain kung asa gyud pinaka the best, but we have our own kanang view, no, na need na to siya i-follow and it has to be respected with the majority. Okay, morals refer to an individual's own principles regarding about right and wrong. So meaning to say, if we're going to take a look at it, ang kaniding ethics is something nga unsa man siya. So barihan niya, let me go back dili sa babaw, no, it is a theory, no, a theory like gikuan diya no gisulti diri sa ubos, no, gitawag siya diri sa ubos og code of conduct in a workplace and principles and yung examples. So it actually undergoes a theory, meaning to say gikan ba na sa usa ka tawo, could be pwede, no, those someone who are actually knowledgeable enough about dili po dingon basta-basta lang himuon, no? This has to be examined and this has to be proven by numerous ways that it was actually applied. Now, marita sa morals, this is something very personal. Na matawag man nato personal, it depends on the individual. No, gitawag siya individual's own principles. So, but pasabot nagdepende sa matag usa sa tao. Like for example, miingon ko ninyo ang kaning pagminyo og daghang babay. Now, unsa may view ninyo ani pagminyo og daghang babay? Ang uban wala sila, di sila mo embrace ana nga kind of belief. Why? Because for them, it could actually question no kaning the sanctity of kaning atong gugma, no? It could also question kaning gitawag nato og kining unsa tawag, the genuineness of feelings. Now, how can you say that your love to a particular person is genuine if maibog pa day ka sa lain? So meaning to say, wala nimo nakita niya tanan ang imong gitawag nato ba sa inyong termino class og ikaw ang akong kinabuhi og ang tanan. O naunsa na lang ang tanan, no? Og daghan na kag higugma. So daghan day imong kinabuhi. Anyway, go back. Let's concentrate now about its meaning. So of course, they are different on the same or on different ways, no? So kanideng morality, of course, that actually depends on individuals' own principles and also perceptions. Like for example, mingon ko ninyo to if I am a millionaire and you are a poor person, mingon ko ninyo nga dapat pareha tagbayranan sa tax. Okay, because all of us will be enjoying that one. All of us can be benefited come with that tax. But of course, we're not sharing the same view about that one. Mingon man muna ko na good for you because dato ka kami pobre man mi. So meaning to say, if you're going to imuha na siyang ipugo sa mo nga pabayron mo tax sa kalibo sa kabuan, it's not favorable to our part. We rather violate ana imuhang kuan diha, no, imong proposal diha amo na i-violate because that is not favorable to our part. So ingon ana, no, pwede siya nga ingon ana. Anyways, let's move on to the next slide. So here you can see the comparison chart for your additional information. Like for example, what are they? So ethics and morals, the difference between them, no? The ethics, the rules of conduct recognized in respect to a particular class of human actions or a particular group or culture. So diyan no, makita diyan no, ang diha gino klaro kay sa no, it is actually designed by a group of people, and atong usbon, it actually undergoes a very systematic kayo nga paagi before they make that one as a theory and apply that one to the people. Okay? Like for example, atong balik kong religion. So of course, di kita mingon nga sometimes if that is something that like for example, kaning religion na to no, gihanay naman ta diha daan. If you are a Muslim, if you are born a Muslim, then of course, you don't have any other choice but to follow kung unsay amo ang gitudlo nimo because that is what we believe nga makaayo para nimo. Now, in the view of morals, ningon sila principle or habits with respect to right or wrong conduct, while morals also prescribe do's and don'ts, morality is ultimately a personal compass of right and wrong. So mingon the personality compass, that depends on you. Whether you are going to follow that one or not, because it depends on you. That is something individual. Okay? Ako na itong i-mention a while ago, no? Where do they came from? So, asam na nagikan, no? Ang kalahian nila, tandaan, social system. That is something that is coming from external. No, nasa sa external. It's not something internal. Mingon tag moral, of course, since it is subjective, it comes from individual. Of course, that comes from the internal. That's how you perceive. And sometimes, yes, to elaborate about that one, sometimes the education also depends. Education also, the influence coming from your own experience could also attribute to the bias about how you are going to perceive morality. Okay? So like for example, mingon taninyo no, ang kani pagpanigarilyo is dili maayo. So katong for those people who actually have an experience nga nasakit sila sa lungs, they would agree to me. no? But for those people nga wala, because kato na educate naman sila to because of katong ilang experience, somehow nakabalo na sila nga it's not good di ay gyud tinuod. And for those who haven't experienced katong sakit, wala masakit, they're not going to agree with me, of course, because unsa may nakamotivate nila ang ilang ang ilang desire, no, to act, to continuously perform with the act. Okay, why we do it? Because society says it is the right thing to do. So meaning to say, this is something, since it is something dictated to the external, of course that is the best for you, and that is also something which is actually designed to actually create kanang gitawag na to common good, no, para sa kaayuhan sa kadaghanan. It's not only designed for a goodness towards every individual. Sa matag usa ninyo, like for example mingon para sa iyahara na, that is actually designed para for his own benefit. No, it's not like that. It is actually designed for the benefit of the majority of people. Now, morals, in the view of morals, because we believe in something being right or wrong. So diyan na to makita, flexibility ethics are dependent on others for definition. So they tend to be consistent with a certain context but can vary between contexts. So pwede po, no? Like for example, mingon taog Bible. So kanang Bible na to, like kanang sa tong Bible ba nga kita Roman Catholic naman tay Bible. So diyan, no, naa siya mga teksto diha, but it depends on the every kaning gitawag man nato no denominations. So mo bitaw na ang question is, sir, why is that so nga daghan man ang mga branches or mga denominations of Christians? Because it depends on how they actually perceive to that particular verse or text coming from the verse. Now, morals also usually consistent, although can change if an individual's beliefs change. So it can be consistent, but sometimes it can also be depends on individual's beliefs, because that could be a factor that could also change their view about morality. I hope you learned something, no? So let me proceed with the next slide. Ethics or ethos, custom or character, no, studies the rightness or wrongness of a human action. So how do human persons ought to act, and what is a right conduct and a good life? So everybody are actually asking about the importance of ethics, and this is it right now that I am introducing to you, no? Nato makita dahil na this is a custom or character. Mingutag custom, of course, nakaugalian, and a character, of course, being the part of custom, is no, that actually explains about what ethics is all about. Next, ethics in a Greek, it is actually being divided, no, by two way, in a Greek tradition and the Judeo-Christian. So by period, no, by period, of course, we have a different view of ethics during ancient time, and there is also a difference during the birth of the Judeo-Christian period or time, no. So for those who are actually born in the Greek ancient times, so they have this Greek tradition, no. For them, they focus more about achieving a good life, especially those that are actually introduced by the famous philosophers coming from the ancient period, no, silang Aristotle, Plato, Socrates. So about good life, about happiness, which is correct naman, no? Matong tanahon, which is also correct, because like for example, I have to ask everybody during their time, they're very curious, and these people are not just something to ang masayon-sayon. They are those brilliant thinkers. So like, how do they actually arrive this kind of kaning principles? No nga, you have to live your life by virtue. You have to do something in your life for you to actually appreciate your existence, something like that, no. So kaning happiness, this is also very important, no, because if I am going to ask you everything that would actually follow coming from that answer of yours is, or would actually produce this what we call happiness, di ba? Mangutana ko ninyo class, what is the reason why nga eskwela man mo? So of course you will surely say something about the value of education, and what is that in you. So may mahatag ana sa inyo ha. So of course it's happiness, di ba? mingon ka sir, muhuman kog eskwela sir, malipay jud ko sir kay makakita kog mayong trabaho. Nya makakita kog mayong trabaho sir, makatabang ko sa akong pamilya, malipay gyapon ka ana. Nya if makahuman ako tabang sa akong pamilya sir, minyo kog disente nga tao, buutan nga tao because I believe nga makakita ko kay makitaan ako siya sa workplace. Kay tungod disente man pud akong trabaho, so it could actually makes me happy for the rest of my life. Happiness lang gyapon. Di ba class? Okay, let's proceed with the whole due question, period, or time. Righteousness before God, love of God and neighbor. So the very famous on the contemporary times, we have St. Thomas Aquinas, kana sila Jeremy Bentham, no? And especially those Christian motivated views of philosophy, sila St. Thomas Aquinas, no? Apil na sila ana, no? So St. Peter, no, apil tanan, no, na sila yung mga articles, mga writings about kanino about sa atuang pagpakigrelasyon sa Dios, no, righteousness before God. Of course, they are encouraging people that the only key for a human being to actually appreciate his existence, to celebrate his life in a very meaningful way, is to actually unite with God. No, you have to seek God. Seek the kingdom. No, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all of these things shall be added unto you. Tinuod mo na, no? Siguro, no one can actually argue about that one. No, kay usahay, sometimes, maul gina, no, daghan na kay kwarta, makalimot na ta sa Ginoo. So, the question is, even though you're a billionaire, are you happy with your life? Still, there are lots of people who are actually committing suicide. No, mingon sila nga, actually, I am the most loneliest. This is not a propaganda here. I am going to share this one to you. I believe this is something very important. Even Michael Jackson himself claims that even though he is a billionaire, still there is that missing piece in his heart. Yeah, he even claims that he is one of the loneliest man in the world. Can you imagine about that one? So muna no nga sometimes no kaingon ta both of this period becomes very remarkable in the history, especially when we talk about philosophy. Kay mao ni no makakatun jud ta. Okay, let me proceed with the next. We have ethics and morality. Another what is this comparison between them, no? Ethics is a theory of right action and a greater good, no? Some greater good gid siya, no? It's not just simply requiring good, but greater good. So morality practice, it's a practice. So meaning to say this is something very prescriptive. Rightness or wrongness of human action, and that depends on individual. Now there you can see sa ubos, it's a systematic study of the underlying principles of morality. And morality is a prescriptive, is actually something that tells us what we ought to do. So how does it actually affects you personally? So muna no, what makes it what can actually interfere with our kaning pagsunod. So unsay sakto unsay sayop is something can be biased by means of our emotions, and also for kanino katong aning atong kaugalingon nga desires. Like for example, mingon ko ninyo nga nganong lisod man kaayo no nga magkahiusa ang mga tao sa kalibutan, because sometimes no the very nature of a human being is kaning pagpamintaha. No, mingutana din tanong mingon na clean up drive nga kanang clean up drive, mingon tabang mo non kapon na nay kana sila may mun tabang sila na kay kasapi man sila na nga kunay mingon sa tanong nga uy narabay ko ano, everybody are actually encouraged ba to participate with maglimpyo anang kapilya. Mingon nino nga limpyo anang kapilya maor man gihapon mamalikas man gyapon na sila ay kapikapoy lang tag-apila na. So nay mga inana no, because usahay mangutana tas ko galingon so may benepisyo to kuana if that is not something that could actually help us, especially to our personal desires. Of course, we tend to balibad ta, no? Okay, next we have Terence Mcconnell, no, 1994. Morality is characterized as an end-governed rational enterprise whose object is to equip people with a body of norms to make for peaceful and collectively satisfying coexistence. So by facilitating their living together and interacting in a way that is productive for the realization of the general benefit. So according to Terence Mcconnell, ethics is science of morals. And morality is a practice of ethics. Tinuod, no? Kaya kaning ethics man it is a collective kanino mo gitawag siya systematic because this becomes science because gistudihan man siya in a collective way about the view of morality. So in a very collective way. Now kaning morality, so of course gitawag siya practice of ethics. Remember, it is the basis about what is the right and the wrong act. Okay. Next, we have types of ethics. We have normative ethics, which is considered prescriptive. It actually seeks to set norms or standards that regulate right and wrong or good and bad conduct. So from the word itself, norm or normative because it is coming from a word norm by origin, and it was actually designed that way. Like for example, mingutan ninyo no kaning atong pagsugod og klase. So sa pagsugod natin klase, what are the ways on or sa may mga paagi for us to actually evaluate your performance? So nagita mga specific set of norms nga to ikuano nga. Of course, you have to be around during meeting. You also have to fill up your attendance, sign up your attendance because that is very important also. And also to answer all of your activities in a prescribed time given by your professor. So that's part of that. No, meta ethics. It's something descriptive. I'm sorry. It actually aims to understand the nature and dynamics of ethical principles and the way we learn and acquire moral beliefs. So diha no, usahay, this is something very descriptive. Why? Gitawag siya meta ethics and it's descriptive. Look at the definition. It's understand the nature and dynamics of ethics and principles. So you're going to understand. You're going to understand in the way that pwede siya no mausap-usap. Why is that so nga giusab naman sad siya? Nung ano nga if before like for example parago na ni itong balaod karon mingon ka nga mingon no nga bawal kaslon dili ba sa tua a conservative country who is actually pan kayo no kanabang masundanon kayo sa tuang sugo sa Dios. Ningon dira ano nga bawal kaslon ang mga babae ug babae, lalaki ug lalaki, bawal kaslon, wala siya gitugot. Apan right now na mga nanagan sa election, they are actually proposing about changing that kind of balaod, no, which is also to give way and to show respect with the LGBT communities about the rights as an individual and also sa the rights of its existence. So inana no something like that. Okay? And that kind of beliefs, that kind of moral beliefs nung natong nakuha is based on how we actually perceive, how we actually see the society in a very kanino harmonious way. So sometimes mingon tanong nga tungod na kagubot because not unless this cannot be changed, it could actually create kanino mga roughs and edges sa tuang society that could cause inequality. So mo na siya nga sometimes we tend to imagine that one, propose that one to the people so that maybe ilang monhon na they are going to arrive in a realization nga importante gid ay no nga atoa po dayong tagaan og lugway nga katungod ang mga tao, especially mingon man sa mga tumboy og mga bayot nga dibiya na mo sa nga mingon anim. So ingon na ana nga way. Okay? Next, normative ethics and meta-ethics. Do good at all times. Ang meta-ethics, what is good? Okay? So here, we also have these classifications. No? We have applied ethics, actually, actual application of ethical or moral theories for the purpose of deciding which ethical or moral actions are appropriate in a given situation. So mo na siyang gitawag siya applied ethics. Like for example, mingon taninyo, is it reasonable that a doctor would actually iyang tawag ani iyang ibulgar no kung unsay sakit sa usa ka pasyente even without the consent of the patient. So of course mingon dito no in the aspect of applied ethics when we are going to take a look at it, it's not good. or it's not suggested to actually atuan na siyang i-vulgar sa mga tao. Why we have this notion for confidentiality, no? So kaya nga siya i-follow nato because that could also violate the rights of the other person kung ato ang buhaton nga we're not going to inform consent coming from niya, no, sa patient. So casuist adherent to of applied ethics. So different fields, as what you can see, we have business ethics, biomedical and environmental ethics, and social ethics. So daghan, no? And to sum up everything, mao gini, no, balik ta sa sinugdanan, ningon dito, no, we mentioned a while ago nga pareha ning mga different courses. We have different code of ethics, especially kani mga psychology na apod sila, no? Doctors, they also have like that, and teachers, and especially ethics also, which is actually imposed in an organization, especially kani gitawag ni business ethics. So of course kana mga business ethics like call centers, of course na sila mga specific na mga batayan sa paggawa ng mabuting kilos, no, sa Tagalog pa, on how they are going to treat their clients, on how they are going to manage their stress, especially if they can actually encounter problems during diha po sa ilang trabaho. Biomedical and environmental ethics, a part of that also, dili kay pwede no nga magsigilan ta og in relation to that kaning kaning mga factory. So of course namo po yung mga specific measures on how they are going to dispose their waste. So naagina tanan, no, nagitay mga sumbanan kung unsay sakto, unsay sayop, and even the social ethics. So sa social ethics, of course, napo tay mga specific nga mga balaod, mga about what is right and what is wrong that is actually being imposed, no, that in order to maintain peace and order. Now, a police officer shoots a terrorist who is about to blow up a crowded shopping mall. So how we are going to answer this one, no, based on the categories given above, no, about the kaning mga types of ethics. We have meta ethics, of course, ningon diyan, no, the act of the police officer is morally wrong because what is ang sa tonality descriptive. So ngano nahimo man siyang morally wrong coming from the view of kaning descriptive. Now, do not forget, no, nga sa meta ethics class, what to kill is actually a wrongdoing. No, sayop ginamo patay ka class, even though that is something in the view of meta ethics, that is something that could actually pwede siya makado harm to other people, no, but whether you like it or not, you have no choice but to do what is only right, what is actually being suggested as sakto nga buhaton. Dili ka pwede mo patay. Imo man gipatay, it could not actually be justified by means of basig daghan pa ni maamong dili, you know, what is right is right, what is wrong is wrong. Okay? In a normative ethics, so as designed in a society, it is the right thing to do in this particular situation. So of course, because what is their justification? In this situation, this is something life-threatening, not only to a single person, but might be to everybody, or it could actually cause numerous damage. So it would be better to actually kanano nga iyang gipusil. Now in the casuist, the police officer is just doing his best to fulfill his duty. So di ano nakita sa usa ka na witness nga sakto raman, no, because the policeman is actually fulfilling his duty. And of course, walay gamit ang police kung palitan din niya pusilo ng usa ka criminal that could that could actually produce numerous damage. So it would be better to actually shoot him. So I think this is the end of my discussion. Thank you so much, everyone. And I hope you learned a lot from this discussion. Have a great evening.